Charlie Johnson, West Valley.
Yes, I know Charlie.
Hello, Captain.
Detective, millionaire, playboy. Burke's Law didn't just break the rules of 1960s television. It rewrote them in a Rolls-Royce. What started as a gamble on an absurd premise turned into a show where the star demanded real champagne. Guest stars lined up around the block. And one episode got so wild the network censors threatened to pull the plug. These are 20 weird facts about Burke's Law. And the bonus? A forgotten spin-off so strange even die-hard fans pretend it never happened. Buckle up. This case gets complicated fast. Number 1. Gene Barry wasn't the first choice to play Amos Burke. The role was originally written for a much older actor, someone with gravitas and weight, someone who could sell the idea of a police captain who'd seen it all. The studio had their eyes on Lee J. Cobb, fresh off his intense dramatic work, believing his rough-edged authority would ground the show's outrageous premise. They approached him, he read the script, and he laughed. Not at the writing, at the concept itself. A millionaire homicide detective who solves murders while wearing tuxedos and driving a Rolls-Royce? Cobb thought it was ridiculous. He turned it down flat, convinced the show would tank within weeks. So the producers pivoted. They needed someone younger, smoother, someone who could make absurdity feel effortless. Gene Barry walked into the audition, fresh off Bat Masterson, bringing charm, sophistication, and just enough self-awareness to know the whole thing was delightfully insane. He didn't try to make Burke realistic. He made him iconic. Barry understood what Cobb couldn't see. The show wasn't supposed to be gritty. It was supposed to be fantasy. A world where being rich and being right were the same thing. Where murder investigations happened between cocktails and beautiful women appeared in every scene like clockwork. The producers watched Barry's screen tests in silence. Then they smiled. Because what they just witnessed wasn't an actor playing a detective. It was a star being born. And Lee J. Cobb, he kept doing serious drama while Burke's Law became one of the most talked about shows on television. Number 2. The Rolls-Royce wasn't a prop. It was Gene Barry's actual car, and he refused to let anyone else drive it. When the producers first pitched the show, they explained that Captain Burke would be chauffeured around Los Angeles in a custom Rolls-Royce, solving crimes in style. Barry listened carefully, then made his position clear. If his character was driving a Rolls, it had to be the real thing. No mock-ups, no studio replicas, no cheap substitutes. The network balked at the cost. A genuine Rolls-Royce Phantom 5 wasn't just expensive. It was a statement, a rolling symbol of wealth that screamed excess in an era when most TV detectives drove Fords. But Barry held firm. He even offered to provide his own vehicle if the studio wouldn't budget for one. They called his bluff. And he showed up to set with his personal Rolls, gleaming black with custom interior. A car so pristine it looked like it had rolled off a showroom floor that morning. The producers were stunned. They'd expected compromise. What they got was commitment, but Barry had one more demand. Only he and his designated chauffeur could touch the car. Not crew members, not other actors, nobody. During filming, production assistants would stand guard between takes, making sure no one leaned against it or left coffee cups on the hood. It became a running joke on set. The car had better security than some of the actual crime scenes they were filming, but that obsessive care paid off. Every time that Rolls glided into frame, audiences knew they were watching something special, something that didn't look like television. It looked like wealth, power, and effortless cool, and Gene Barry made sure it stayed that way.
Maybe the big one. I want a few minutes with an almanac.
Number 3. Burke's Law had a secret weapon that no other detective show could match. Celebrity guest stars, and not just any celebrities. The biggest names in Hollywood, film legends, rising stars, actors who normally wouldn't touch television with a 10-foot pole. Every episode featured multiple famous faces, often playing murder suspects, witnesses, or victims. The list reads like a who's who of 1960s entertainment. Annette Funicello, Mickey Rooney, Cesar Romero, Diane Baker, Buddy Ebsen, and dozens more. But here's the weird part. They weren't doing it for the money. Burke's Law paid standard television rates, nothing close to what these actors commanded for film work. So why did they keep showing up? Gene Barry. The man had built a reputation as one of the most gracious professional actors in the business. He remembered names, asked about families, made everyone feel like the most important person on set. Word spread through Hollywood that working on Burke's Law wasn't just a job. It was a genuine pleasure. Actors would call their agents asking to be booked. Some took pay cuts just to appear. The show became the hot ticket, a place where A-listers could have fun, play against type, and work with someone who treated them like royalty. The producers quickly realized they had stumbled onto gold. Each episode became a game for viewers. Who would show up this week? What familiar face would be playing the killer? The guest star parade turned into Burke's Law's signature, a revolving door of famous faces that kept audiences guessing and critics buzzing. And Gene Barry, ever the gentleman, made sure every single one of them felt welcome, valued, and eager to come back. Number 4. The show's creator had one unbreakable rule. Every episode had to end with the killer's confession in Burke's presence. No courtroom scenes, no dramatic arrests blocks away. No ambiguity. The murderer would be confronted, cornered by Burke's impeccable logic, and then they'd break, admitting everything while Burke watched with calm satisfaction. It was formulaic, predictable, and absolutely essential. But during the second season, a young writer pitched something different. An episode where the killer gets away, where Burke solves the case but can't prove it, where justice stays tantalizingly out of reach. The writer argued it would add realism, complexity, show that even brilliant detectives sometimes lose. The creator listened politely. Then he said no, firmly, finally, with no room for negotiation. Burke's Law wasn't about realism. It was about certainty. Audiences tuned in every week knowing that, by the final act, order would be restored, the killer would be caught, Burke would win. That wasn't a flaw in the formula, that was the formula. The writer pushed back, arguing that predictability would kill the show's edge. The creator smiled. Our audience doesn't want edge, he said. They want comfort. They want to watch a rich, handsome man solve impossible crimes and make it look easy. They want escape. The writer eventually left the show, frustrated by what he saw as creative limitations. But Burke's Law kept running, kept winning its time slot, kept delivering exactly what viewers craved. Sometimes the formula isn't a prison, sometimes it's a promise. And Burke's Law kept that promise every single week. The killer always confessed. Burke always won. And America couldn't get enough. Number 5.
Oh.
Holly Howard, one of your girls?
Yes, sir.
How long?
Just a month.
Gene Barry insisted on real champagne in every scene that called for it. Not ginger ale, not sparkling cider, not prop department substitutes. Actual champagne, chilled, poured fresh, consumed on camera. The producers thought he was joking at first. Television shows didn't use real alcohol. It was expensive, impractical, and potentially dangerous if an actor had to do multiple takes. But Barry wasn't budging. His character was a millionaire who appreciated the finer things. If Burke was drinking champagne at a gala or celebrating solving a case, it had to be authentic. Anything less would be dishonest. The network reluctantly agreed, setting aside a surprising chunk of the budget for alcohol procurement. But then came the logistics. Some episodes required multiple champagne scenes. Multiple takes meant multiple bottles. And Barry, ever the professional, would actually drink it, not sip and spit. Drink. By the third take of a particularly champagne-heavy episode, the crew noticed Barry's delivery getting slightly looser, his movements a touch more relaxed. The director panicked. They had 6 more scenes to shoot. If Barry kept drinking real champagne, he'd be useless by evening. So they struck a compromise. First take, real champagne. Every take after, the good fake stuff, high-end sparkling cider that looked identical on camera. Barry grudgingly accepted, though he maintained that viewers could tell the difference in his performance. The body knows real champagne, he'd insist between scenes. The crew would nod politely, then quietly swap the bottles when he wasn't looking. But here's the thing. Barry was right. The first takes, with real champagne, always had a certain sparkle, a looseness, an authenticity that the later takes couldn't quite capture. And sometimes, when the director knew they'd nail it in one, they'd let Barry have the real thing. Because Burke's Law wasn't just about looking rich, it was about actually being it, one glass at a time. Number 6. The show almost got canceled after a single episode, and it had nothing to do with ratings. The pilot featured a murder at a high society party. beautiful women in evening gowns, and Burke investigating while attending a lavish charity gala. Standard stuff for the series. But the network censors had a problem. In one scene, Burke interviews a female suspect wearing a dress they deemed too revealing. The neckline plunged, the fabric clung, and when she leaned forward to light a cigarette, the censors nearly had a collective heart attack. They demanded the scene be reshot with the actress in a different wardrobe. The producers refused. The dress was integral to the character, they argued. She was using her sexuality as a weapon, a distraction. Changing it would undermine the entire point. The censors didn't care. They threatened to pull the pilot from the air entirely. For 3 days, Burke's Law sat in limbo. Millions of dollars invested in a show that might never reach viewers because of 6 seconds of cleavage. Then someone had a brilliant idea. What if they added a piece of dialogue? A line where another character comments on the dress, making the provocative nature intentional rather than accidental. If the show acknowledged it, the censors reasoned, it became commentary instead of exploitation. The producers quickly called the actress back, filmed an additional insert shot with new dialogue, and submitted it for approval. The censors watched. They deliberated. They approved. Burke's Law premiered on schedule. And that dress, the one that nearly killed the series, became iconic. Fans wrote letters asking where to buy it. Fashion magazines featured it in spreads. And the censors, who'd fought so hard to stop it, quietly pretended the battle never happened. Because sometimes controversy isn't a problem, it's advertising. Number 7. Gene Barry and his on-screen chauffeur Henry, played by Regis Toomey, couldn't stand each other. From the first read-through, the tension was obvious. Barry found Toomey's performance too broad, too comedic for what he envisioned as a sophisticated show. Toomey thought Barry was pretentious, too concerned with looking good instead of telling the story. They'd barely speak between takes. If the script required them to share a scene in the Rolls-Royce, you could cut the atmosphere with a knife. The crew tried everything to ease the tension. Separate dressing rooms, staggered call times, even a mediator who attempted to broker peace. Nothing worked. They were oil and water, two professionals who simply did not mesh. But then something strange happened. The audience loved them together. The dynamic between Burke and Henry, the wealthy captain and his loyal chauffeur, played beautifully on screen. The slight tension that leaked through actually enhanced their scenes, adding an edge that made their relationship feel lived in and real. Viewers wrote fan letters praising their chemistry. Critics called them one of television's great duos. And Barry and Toomey, who could barely tolerate each other in real life, were stuck playing best friends every week. Eventually, they reached a professional détente. They'd arrive, hit their marks, deliver their lines with perfect chemistry, then immediately retreat to opposite ends of the set. It wasn't friendship, it was craft. Two actors who understood that what happened on camera mattered more than what happened off it, and somehow, through sheer professionalism and mutual avoidance, they created television magic. The hatred never went away. They just learned to use it. And Burke's Law was better for it. Number 8. Every episode was filmed in actual Los Angeles mansions, and the owners had one peculiar demand. They wanted to be extras. The production designer would scout potential locations, finding sprawling estates in Beverly Hills, Bel Air, and Pacific Palisades. When he'd approach the owners about using their homes, they'd inevitably ask the same question: can we be in it? At first, the producers said no. These weren't actors. They were wealthy socialites with zero experience and potentially terrible screen presence. But the owners held all the cards. Their homes were perfect, authentic, exactly what Burke's Law needed to sell its world of privilege and luxury. So, a deal was struck. The homeowners could appear as background extras, party guests, or crowd members, but they had to follow direction, stay quiet, and not expect any close-ups. The results were hilariously mixed. Some took to it naturally, comfortable being themselves in their own environments. Others froze on camera, suddenly aware of lights and crew and the weight of being watched. One oil tycoon's wife was so nervous during her scene at a cocktail party that she knocked over an entire tray of champagne glasses, ruining the take and destroying a priceless Persian rug. Another mansion owner, a former silent film actor, couldn't resist mugging for the camera every time it panned past, pulling focus from the actual paid performers. But the producers endured it all because the locations were worth it. Every week, Burke's Law looked like $1 million because they were filming in actual $1 million homes. And if that meant dodging amateur actors and managing fragile egos, so be it. The show's glamour was real, and real glamour came with real complications. Number 9. The show's head writer had never solved a murder, never investigated a crime, never even gotten a parking ticket. He was a comedy writer who'd worked on sitcoms and variety shows, hired specifically because the producers didn't want Burke's Law to feel like other detective series. They wanted wit, charm, and sparkling dialogue, not police procedural accuracy. And for the first season, it worked brilliantly. The mysteries were fun, twisty, more focused on character than forensics. But midway through season 2, real detectives started watching, and they weren't happy. Letters poured in from law enforcement across the country, pointing out errors, impossibilities, moments where Burke's investigation methods would have gotten evidence thrown out or suspects released. One particularly detailed letter from an LAPD captain outlined 17 procedural violations in a single episode. The network panicked. They worried about losing credibility, about becoming a joke among actual police. So they hired a consultant, a retired homicide detective who'd review scripts for accuracy. He read the first script submitted to him and returned it covered in red ink. "This is completely wrong," he wrote in the margins. None of this would hold up. The writers tried incorporating his notes, but the episodes became stiff, procedural, boring. The spark that made Burke's Law special started dying. Finally, Gene Barry intervened. "We're not making a documentary," he told the producers. "We're making entertainment. If cops want realism, they can watch Dragnet. Our audience wants champagne and beautiful women and mysteries solved by someone in a tuxedo." The consultant was quietly let go. The writers went back to making it up as they went along. And the real detectives kept complaining, kept writing letters, kept tuning in every week. Because even they couldn't resist watching Burke solve the unsolvable with style. Number 10. Halfway through season 1, the show ran out of murder weapons. The prop department had started with a standard arsenal: guns, knives, blunt objects, poison. But Burke's Law churned out episodes weekly, each requiring a unique murder method to keep things fresh. By episode 15, they'd exhausted the obvious options. The prop master started getting creative. A murder by letter opener, another by a heavy bookend. One particularly memorable killing involved a poisoned earring, but the writers kept pushing for more unusual methods, more inventive deaths. It became an arms race of absurdity. The prop department scrambled, scouring antique shops and curio stores for anything that could plausibly kill someone. They bought medieval daggers, exotic plants, antique medical equipment, even a crossbow that appeared in exactly one scene. The costs started spiraling. One episode's murder weapon, a rare African tribal spear, cost more than some actors' salaries. The producers finally set a limit. No murder weapon could cost more than $50. The prop master panicked. How could he keep delivering unique, interesting kills on a budget? Then he had a revelation. Household items. Things people already owned. A lamp, an extension cord, a heavy vase. Suddenly, every episode became a reminder that anything could be a weapon. Your home was full of potential murder tools. It added an eerie domesticity to the show's glamorous world. Sure, Burke traveled in high society, but people still died from being hit with candlesticks and pushed down stairs. And audiences loved it. They'd watch each episode trying to guess what everyday object would become this week's instrument of death. The prop master became a twisted genius of improvisation, and Burke's Law became the show that's proved you don't need exotic weapons to kill someone, just imagination and a hardware store. Number 11. Gene Barry did his own stunts until he didn't. The first season went smoothly, Barry handling minor physical work without complaint. Then came an episode requiring Burke to chase a suspect across rooftops. Simple enough. Barry climbed onto the soundstage roof, cameras ready. He took 3 steps and his foot went through rotted wood. He dropped waist deep into the ceiling, dangling above a shocked crew. Luckily, he caught himself on a beam. No injuries, just bruised ego and torn trousers. The producers immediately hired a stunt double. Barry hated it. He felt diminished, watching another man do action scenes while he stood aside. But insurance demanded it. One more accident and the show could shut down. So Barry's double, a former acrobat named Jack Williams, handled anything remotely dangerous: chases, fights, climbing. Williams looked nothing like Barry, shorter and stockier, but clever camera angles sold the illusion. Barry eventually made peace with it, joking that Williams did the dangerous work while he did the dangerous acting, meaning scenes with difficult dialogue and demanding directors. Number 12. One episode never aired in its original form. Who Killed Sweet Betsy? Featured a murder at a beauty pageant, complete with contestants in swimsuits and evening gowns. The network approved the script, approved the costumes, everything greenlit. Then they saw the rough cut. The problem wasn't the murder mystery. It was a brief scene where Burke interviews contestants backstage, several visible in various states of undress, changing between competition segments. Nothing explicit, just women in slips and bras, completely normal for a backstage environment. But 3 Southern affiliates refused to air it. They called it indecent, inappropriate for family viewing. The network faced a choice: pull the episode entirely or edit it. They chose editing, clumsily cutting the backstage sequence and replacing it with additional footage of Burke questioning the pageant director. The episode aired, but it made no sense. Characters referenced conversations that never happened. Plot points vanished. Viewers were confused. Critics noticed the choppy editing. And the 3 affiliates that demanded the changes, they received hundreds of complaint letters anyway. Not about content, but about the incomprehensible story. Number 13. The cast walked off set during season 2, and it had nothing to do with money. The network had hired a new director, someone with film experience but zero television background. He treated the crew like servants, demanding perfection on impossibly tight schedules. 14-hour days became standard. Meal breaks disappeared. He'd scream at camera operators, belittle script supervisors, reduce production assistants to tears. Gene Barry watched for 3 days before acting. On day 4, mid-scene, Barry stopped performing. He calmly removed his microphone, set it on a table, and walked to his dressing room. The rest of the cast followed. Within minutes, the entire production ground to halt. The director was furious, threatening to fire everyone. The producers arrived within the hour. Barry's demands were simple: fire the director or lose the show. The network had invested millions. They couldn't afford to lose their star. The director was gone by evening, escorted off the lot by security. A replacement arrived the next morning, someone Barry had personally approved. Filming resumed as if nothing happened, but the message was clear. Gene Barry ran Burke's Law, and anyone who forgot that wouldn't last long. Number 14. Burke's office was actually a redressed nightclub. Budget constraints meant the production couldn't build multiple standing sets, so they got creative. Burke's police headquarters, where he'd brief his team and review evidence, was the same physical space as the nightclub that appeared in several episodes. At the end of a nightclub shoot, the crew would work overnight, removing tables and chairs, bringing in desks and filing cabinets, changing the lighting from moody and romantic to bright and official. Then they'd film all the police station scenes needed for the next several episodes. Then, overnight again, back to nightclub mode. The transitions were exhausting for the crew, but invisible to viewers. Same walls, same windows, completely different environments. Only once did they mess up. In one episode, a nightclub scene shows a distinctive Art Deco lamp in the background. 3 episodes later, that same lamp appears in Burke's office. Eagle-eyed viewers noticed, writing letters asking why the police department had such unusual taste in decor. The producers laughed it off, claiming Burke had personally decorated his office. Problem solved. Number 15. Gene Barry's contract contained a bizarre clause. He approved every female guest star's wardrobe. Not because he was controlling or inappropriate, but because he understood something crucial. Burke's Law sold sophistication. The women had to look expensive, elegant, like they belonged in Burke's world of wealth and privilege. Barry had impeccable taste, a genuine eye for fashion. When costume designers submitted sketches, he'd review them personally, suggesting changes, adjustments, different fabrics, or cuts. Sometimes he'd bring in clothes from his wife's wardrobe, designer pieces that fit the aesthetic perfectly. The costume department initially resented the interference, seeing it as overreach. But they quickly realized Barry was always right. His suggestions elevated every outfit, made good costumes great. Women viewers started tuning in, not just for the mystery, but for the fashion, noting what actresses wore, copying styles. Fan magazines ran features on Burke's Law wardrobe, and Gene Barry, who'd never studied fashion formally, became one of television's unexpected style influencers, all because he cared about getting every detail right. Number 16. The show's most famous episode almost never got made. Who Killed Julian Buck featured a murder at a television studio, allowing the production to film on their own lot and use actual CBS facilities. The script was smart, meta, filled with inside jokes about television production. But the network brass hated it. They thought it was too self-referential, too insular, that audiences wouldn't care about Hollywood eating itself. The producer fought hard, arguing that viewers loved behind-the-scenes glimpses, that the episode was a love letter to television itself. The network remained skeptical, but finally approved it with minimal promotion. The episode aired on a random Tuesday with zero fanfare, and it became the highest-rated episode of the season. Audiences loved the insider peek, the cameos from actual CBS executives playing themselves, the murder mystery set against real studio politics. Critics praised its cleverness, and the network executives who'd opposed it suddenly claimed they'd supported it all along. The episode became so popular that other detective shows copied the format, setting mysteries in television studios, newspapers, anywhere that allowed self-referential storytelling. Number 17. Regis Toomey, who played Henry the chauffeur, was secretly going deaf. He'd been losing his hearing gradually for years, covering it brilliantly through lip reading and positioning himself strategically during scenes. But by season 3, it became critical. He'd miss cues, respond to dialogue he hadn't actually heard, struggle in scenes where other actors weren't facing him. The producers noticed but said nothing, hoping he'd address it himself. He didn't. Finally, during a crucial scene, Toomey responded to completely different dialogue than what Gene Barry had actually said. The take was ruined. The director called cut, and Toomey broke down, admitting his hearing loss, apologizing, offering to quit. Gene Barry, who'd barely tolerated Toomey for 3 seasons, shocked everyone. He immediately advocated for accommodations, clearer blocking so Toomey could always see speakers, written cue cards for complex scenes, extended rehearsal time. Barry even learned basic sign language to communicate with Toomey between takes. The professional rivals became unlikely allies, united by Toomey's disability and Barry's unexpected compassion. Toomey stayed with the show, and their on-screen chemistry actually improved. Funny how crisis reveals character. Number 18. Burke's Law accidentally created a fashion trend that defined 1960s menswear. Gene Barry's tuxedos, custom made by a relatively unknown Los Angeles tailor, were sleeker than traditional formal wear. Narrower lapels, higher armholes, a more fitted silhouette. Barry thought they looked modern, European, sophisticated. When the show premiered, men's fashion editors noticed immediately. Who made Burke's tuxedos? Where could viewers buy similar styles? The tailor, suddenly drowning in requests, couldn't keep up with demand. Within 6 months, major menswear companies were copying the look, producing Burke-style tuxedos in department stores nationwide. The slim-fit formal revolution that dominated 1960s men's fashion traces directly back to Gene Barry's insistence on contemporary tailoring. James Bond would later popularize similar silhouettes, but Burke's Law did it first, quietly revolutionizing how American men dressed for formal occasions. The tailor who made those original tuxedos, he became one of Hollywood's most sought-after designers, his waiting list stretching years. All because one actor refused to wear traditional formal wear. Number 19. The series finale was supposed to be a cliffhanger. Burke would face an unsolvable murder, the killer escaping, setting up a big season 4 premiere. Scripts were written, sets built, the episode filmed. Then ABC suddenly canceled the show. No warning, no discussion, just a terse notification that Burke's Law was done. The producers panicked. They had a finale that resolved nothing, that would leave audiences frustrated and confused. In desperation, they recalled Gene Barry for 1 day of additional shooting, filming a hastily written epilogue where Burke solves the case through a completely implausible last-minute clue. The sequence was rushed, poorly integrated, and made zero logical sense, but it provided closure. The episode aired with this awkward addition, critics noting the jarring tonal shift. Fans were disappointed but grateful for any resolution. Gene Barry later called it the worst work he'd ever filmed, a cheap patch job that betrayed everything Burke's Law represented. But it was better than nothing. The show ended not with a bang or a whimper, but with an apologetic shrug. Number 20. After cancellation, Gene Barry tried desperately to sell Burke's Law to other networks. He'd grown to love the character despite his initial reservations, seeing potential for years more stories. CBS passed, NBC passed. Even smaller networks showed no interest. The detective genre was saturated, they claimed. Burke's format was dated. Audiences had moved on. Barry refused to accept it. He personally financed a new pilot, updating Burke for the late 1960s, making him slightly less wealthy, more relatable. He shot it independently, shopped it everywhere. Nobody wanted it. For 3 years, Barry carried that pilot in his briefcase, showing it to anyone who'd watch. Network executives, producers, even fellow actors. Nothing. The rejection devastated him. Burke's Law had defined his career, and he couldn't let it go. Eventually, his wife convinced him to move forward, to find new roles, new characters. Barry reluctantly agreed, storing the pilot in his garage. Decades later, he'd occasionally watch it alone, wondering what might have been. The detective who solved every case couldn't solve his own cancellation. Bonus fact: in 1994, 31 years after the original, CBS revived Burke's Law, with Gene Barry reprising his role. Now the show featured Burke's son, Peter, as the main detective, with Amos as the elder statesman advisor. It was strange, unnecessary, and nobody asked for it. The revival lasted 1 season, 27 episodes of Burke solving murders, while complaining about modern technology and reminiscing about the good old days. Critics were brutal. Audiences ignored it. Even Gene Barry admitted it felt wrong, like wearing a tuxedo that no longer fit properly. The magic that made the original special, that perfect storm of style, timing, and cultural moment, couldn't be recreated. Some shows are products of their era, beautiful because they captured a specific time and place. Burke's Law belonged to 1963, to an America that believed in elegance, glamour, and handsome millionaires solving crimes. By 1994, that world had vanished. The revival proved that you can bring back a character, but you can't resurrect a zeitgeist.